and long, bear with me. Quote, with their money, they took control of the world media, news agencies, the press, publishing houses, broadcasting stations, and others. They stirred revolutions in various parts of the world. They were behind the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, and most of the revolutions we hear about. They formed secret societies, such as the Freemasons, the Rotary Clubs, the Lions Club, for the purpose of sabotaging societies and achieving Zionist interests. They were behind World War I. They were behind World War II, through which they made huge financial gains by trading in armaments and paved the way for the establishment of their state. There was no war going on anywhere without having their finger in it. The Islamic resistance movement calls on Arab and Islamic nations to take up the line of serious and persevering action to prevent the success of this horrendous plan, to warn the people of the danger emanating from leaving the circle of struggle against Zionism. Today it is Palestine, tomorrow it will be one country or another. The Zionist plan is limitless. Their plan is embodied in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. There is no way out except by concentrating all powers and energies to face this Nazi invasion. The Islamic resistance movement is the spearhead of the circle of struggle with world Zionism, the fight with the warmongering Jews. Unquote. Some of you may know this comes from the Covenant of the Islamic Resistance Movement, also known as Hamas, published in 1988. That is, this is the founding program, never revoked to this day, of the organization that carried out the bloody attacks in Israel on October 7th. If you don't know, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is an alleged conspiracy theory that claims a secret council of Jewish elders are plotting to rule the world. It similarly blames Jews for all the evils of that world. The protocols proved to be a forgery. Even the Nazis knew this, but they used it anyhow. They published 23 editions of the book. Okay, fast forward 80 years. I've never met Samia Halaby, though I have read her Instagram posts. One of them says, liberate the Gaza concentration camp. Another says, Gaza equals Auschwitz. In light of the genocidal Jew hatred promoted by Hamas in their founding covenant, and along with this, the fact that they have the gall to label Jews as the real Nazis, I found Halaby's post abhorrent. Along with much of the pro-Palestinian activism we have seen as of late, it provides political cover to murderous Jew hatred. Anti-Semitism is not only bad for Jews, it's a poisonous dagger aimed at the heart of any movement that seeks to empower and unite working people of any nationality by providing a convenient scapegoat, Jews, for the real evils of the dog-eat-dog capitalist system. And yet, having said that, to Larry David, I am here today because I also found the actions of the IU administration abhorrent. The provost would have you think he's looking out for your best interests. He's making a tough decision, and it's for your protection. It's all about safety and security, but I don't buy it. They didn't like what she had to say about the war, and so they banned her from the campus. It's easy to support free speech and free artistic expression when you agree with the speakers and the artists. The real test of free speech is when you detest what the speaker has to say. Cancellation of the Halaby exhibit sends a dangerous precedent. It means that whenever there's a controversial speaker or artist, all someone needs to do is call in a bomb threat and it's all over. There is another way. Just today, we got an email from IU asking for volunteers for the eclipse. That's awesome. According to the email, quote, IU Public Safety is looking for faculty and staff who would be willing to help with various safety and event roles. How about that? If we can do this, listen, if we can do this for the eclipse, surely we can do it for Samia Halaby. Here's what the IU administration could have done and should do in the future anytime there is a controversial speaker or artist coming to campus. If there is a threat, IU should immediately communicate it to everyone. It's funny, they've been talking to the FBI, but they haven't been talking to us. Then IU can hold a series of public forums about the importance and value and history of free speech and artistic expression. I bet the political and civic engagement program, the PACE program, would be about with this. We do free speech Fridays. As Alec mentioned, we did just one today out of the Red Clock by Woodburn. Then we would collaborate with the art museum or department or event sponsor to provide grassroots security for the exhibit slash speaker slash whatever. We've got about 44,000 students, 2,500 faculty, maybe more than 10,000 staff. The numbers may not be exactly correct. Do you think out of some 56,000 people, we could assemble a group from the campus community who could be trained to ensure that Samia Halaby's exhibit was kept secure from February to June? I think so. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Ron. We haven't heard this there for a few minutes, but all right. So now I'll turn over the mic to Steve Sam at our law school. So, Steve, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Is the cancellation of Samia Halaby a question of academic? Samia Halaby is and she's not someone who freedom as traditionally understood or owed. Moreover, no one as a matter of academic freedom or free speech to have their work given a place of honor at the university, just as no one has a right to be invited to speak or be hired or be granted tenure. But a university is defined by certain distinctive values. They include free expression, shared governance, respect for professional judgment based on academic training and expertise. All of these values at least intersect with and support academic freedom, and all of these things by the decision to cancel Samia Halaby. There's a reason universities have great universities have art museums. My former boss and mentor, the late IU Vice President Chancellor Ken Gross-Lewis, who presided over this campus from 1980 to 2001, once called our art museum one of the truly sacred places on this sprawling secular campus. According to the AAUP's landmark 1915 Declaration on Academic Freedom, a university is a great and indispensable organ of the higher life of a civilized community. It should be an intellectual experiment station where new ideas and forms of expression may germinate. In a 1949 Supreme Court decision called Terminiello versus Chicago, Justice William O. Douglas wrote that the function of free speech is to invite dispute. It may indeed serve its high purpose when it induces a condition of unrest, creates dissatisfaction with conditions as they are, or even stirs people to anger. A great university, including its art museums, is one of the places where these things happen. According to the Broad Museum of Art in Michigan State, which will host the exhibition IU Canceled, Samia Halaby's paintings reflect a life of witness, one we are invited to take part in by looking slowly and closely at the artist's work. And according to the Terra Foundation, which helped to fund the project, the exhibition traces Halaby's journey in inventing an abstract visual language to express her lived experience. The result is a new consideration of how the Midwest was pivotal to Halaby's artistic trajectory. The effort to create the exhibition, as we know, took 3 years. Here at IU, trained curators, our academic colleagues, untenured though they may be, recognizing Halaby as one of the most important and prolific painters of her generation, decided her work was worthy of being exhibited in a university setting, that it would provoke thought, challenge stereotypes, start conversations, maybe even make some people uncomfortable. We have now all been deprived of those things. The judgment of the artistic professionals who work in this academic setting was rejected, and all of us are poorer as a result. Not to mention that we have gravely disrespected one of our own most accomplished and renowned alumni and former faculty members. True Hoosiers, people who understand the human ties created by this place, don't do that. In the worst explanation, the Halaby cancellation may have been an act of censorship and capitulation to political bullying. A function of a university in a democratic society, according to the AAUP 1915 Declaration, is to help make public opinion more self-critical, to check the more hasty and unconsidered impulses of popular feeling. Well, this is a test we may have failed. As an aside, I do wonder whether we'd be all here flexing for free speech if Halaby, instead of criticizing Israel, had been canceled for criticizing some progressive article of faith, like DEI, or trans kids in sports, or immigration. Free speech, like academic freedom, only makes sense if it is a neutral principle, not one we only assert when it aligns with our personal worldview. Even if pure censorship was not the motivation behind the cancellation, the most charitable explanation for it, and this is the explanation I personally believe is most likely, is that it was the product of the kind of cost-benefit analysis undertaken by corporate managers, not academic leaders. It was a decision made not on principle, but based on a calculation that the risks of controversy, politics, protests, and the need for security outweighed the cost of whatever controversy that might ensue if the exhibition was canceled. Well, the embarrassment, the damage to this university's reputation, internationally and nationally, has suffered. The squandering of our heritage and principled decision-making on controversial matters, these certainly demonstrate that our university's decision-makers got that calculation wrong. In 1966, an IU student group hosted the historian and activist Herbert Akbar, a member of the Communist Party. Politicians and alumni predictably were outraged. Recently, an alumnus from that era shared with me letters that Elvis Starr, IU's president at that time, sent to alumni, as well as to a member of Congress from Indiana, Richard Rauderbush. The letters appealed to reason and principle in explaining why the university had always stood for the free exchange of ideas. It is because of this, President Starr wrote to the alumni, not despite it, that your university has become a great institution. He wrote to Congressman Rauderbush, should we docilely let any government or pressure group pressure us into surrendering a basic principle? Of course not. I think many of us wish we knew whether President Whitten's response to Congressman Jim Banks's letter reflected that same courage and principle. To return to the question where I began, the Halaby cancellation is a matter of academic freedom because the evidence strongly suggests it was not grounded in academic values and principles, deference to expertise and professional judgment, defense of free expression and diverse ideas against the heckler's veto, consultation of faculty leaders before key decisions are made on matters affecting university life, and Indiana University's history of defending free inquiry. When administrative decision-making abandons these academic principles, none of us who work and study here can be secure in our teaching, scholarship, artistic expression, or public service. Elvis Starr's predecessor, the legendary Herman Wells, about whom Jim Capshew has already spoken, wrote in his memoirs, "One cannot command spirit, cannot command learning, cannot command an atmosphere, but one can, with the proper leadership, contribute to the nurture of all of these." I'm afraid that we've also seen that with a different kind of leadership, we also run the danger of losing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I have to note that about Herbert Aptheker. I mean, Howard Zinn spoke here against the Vietnam War about a year after that, but I'm going to look that up. So we've heard from historians, we've heard from lawyers, we've heard from art historians. Now we'll hear from artists. So Roland Ricketts teaches art at the Ashkenazi School and is himself a textile artist. And Roland, thank you for joining us, and I'll put your slide up on the screen.
Thanks to Alex and Deb and Maria and others who organized this today, and for everyone who's contributed and to everyone who's shown up. as we hope to do in the Academy to learn more. So I'd like to start by clearly stating that I'm not here really today representing the Eskenazi School per se, but a group of over 70 faculty and staff in our school met to discuss our concerns. We've written and met with the provost. We met with the provost just this afternoon, and have issued a public statement about our opposition to the cancellation of this exhibit. I've been part of those conversations, so my points today are both my personal thoughts, really as another artist, as well as those that I've heard reflected in the concerned voices of faculty, staff, and students in our school. The picture up here behind me is the cover and inside of the inside page of the title page of this exhibition catalog from 1970, from what is now the Eskenazi Museum of Art. And I'm going to start. I've written something else, but the curator of Samia's exhibition, which was canceled, handed me a copy of the book right before we started today. And part of this, the sort of biography in here kind of replaces the biography I had written. So I want to read to this. This is from, published by Indiana University in 1970. Samia Halaby. Ms. Samia Halaby was born December 12, 1936 in Jerusalem, Palestine. Several years after arriving in the United States, Ms. Halaby began her art education at the University of Cincinnati, where she was the recipient of a Bachelor of Science degree in 1959. She received her Master of Fine Arts degree in 1961, or Master of Arts, degree in 1961 from Michigan State, and continued her education as a painter at Indiana University, being awarded a Master of Fine Arts degree in 1963. She taught art history and studio art courses at the University of Hawaii, the Kansas City Art Institute, and the University of Michigan prior to her return in 1969 as a faculty member in Indiana University's Department of Fine Arts. Ms. Halaby's paintings have been shown in group exhibitions in Cincinnati, Ohio, Honolulu, Hawaii, New York, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. As a Kansas City Art Institute faculty member, she participated in the International Traveling Exhibition, Art of Two Cities, sponsored by the General Mills Corporation. She is also a member of the U.S. State Department's Art in the Embassies program, where her work is on short-term loan. I'm going to come back to this in this slide in a minute. So, as pointed out here, Samia Halaby taught at IU for a number of years. After that, she moved on to Yale, where she became the first female associate professor at that university. She's been active as an artist for well over a half a century, and as Margaret pointed out, is internationally recognized as an icon of both abstract painting and digital art. To bring this bio up to date, her works in the collection of the British Museum, the Guggenheim Museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Cleveland Museum of Arts, and many others, including our very own Eskenazi Museum of Art. So, last week, the curator of the canceled exhibition came and spoke with our faculty, sharing with us the presentation that they had prepared for museum staff, so that they would be well informed about the exhibition. And in that presentation, this is one of the images they shared, and it's one that drove home Halaby's deep connection to IU. Three of the other artists listed here had long careers at IU. Sorry, I should be looking at the same time, I'll just read it. Barry Gelb, number 1, Samia Halaby, you know, number 2, Bill Itter, number 3, and Bonnie Skolarski, number 5. Sorry, I'm not fully up on the history of the painting program here, so I can't answer the question about the other folks. Sorry. But what I guess the point that I wanted to make is those three faculty members are really part of our living memory. They've taught with us here. All three of them, myself included, and their contributions have shaped art at IU and our school. They've all, I taught with all of them when I first got here 17 years ago. And since then they've all retired, but are still living, and they're still part of our community. I'm actually having dinner with one of them tonight. So, seeing Halaby's name interwoven with theirs left all of us feeling a collective sense of loss and grief. And I say that because we feel that now is the time, the year in which Halaby's work is being featured in the Venice Biennale, which is the pinnacle of both the global art world and her career. Now is the time when IU and Hoosiers more broadly should be upholding and celebrating Halaby's vast contributions over her long career to art and culture, both in the US and globally. Now is the time when we should be celebrating the role that IU and Bloomington and the Midwest played in shaping the career of our internationally distinguished alumna and former faculty. Now is the time to elevate our museum and university to the center of global art conversations for its vision in hosting the first US retrospective of this important artist. But instead, we are here at a teach-in, voicing concerns about academic and artistic freedom on our campus in the wake of the cancellation of Halaby's exhibition. For us, it's a deeply sad moment in which we're reflecting on the humanity of IU as an institution. Over 50 years ago, IU warmly welcomed and embraced Halaby when she arrived in Bloomington as a newly admitted graduate student to pursue an MFA in painting. We cannot help but to compare this with the terse cancellation of her exhibition now and administration's unwillingness to even talk with or acknowledge her. So yes, we are deeply concerned with the cancellation, its negative impact on freedom of expression, and the reputational damage it has brought. We're also concerned about the lack of transparency in making the decision and the disrespect this lack of transparency and lack of communication shows to our distinguished alumni and former faculty. This afternoon we met with the provost in hopes of promoting conversations with administration in order to repair the university's relationship with Halaby, to find a way to reinstate the exhibition at IU in some form, to receive assurances that academic freedom, creative expression, and all the members of our community are upheld at IU. We also hope to set the stage for more transparency in decision-making, repair IU's reputation, as I said, and most importantly, we hope to celebrate this world-renowned artist as a distinguished alumna and former faculty member as one of our own. And as Margaret said about Samia's work, we hope to do that in sincerity and in earnest. Thank you.
Thank you for the mic has died. Just in time for the poet. I turned it back on. So let me change the battery, Ross, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, unless you feel like doing this without me. As the historian, let me just remind you that in 1970,
When the university was celebrating Halaby's work in that brochure, this was not an uncontroversial moment in Israel-Palestine relations. Let's put it that way, 1970. All right. With that, I will turn over the mic to Ross Gay. Fittingly enough, a poet will wrap up this, and then we'll have a chance for people to speak on the floor. Thanks, Ross.
Hey everyone. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for doing all this. And I'm just going to read this thing. And it's called, I guess it's right now, it's called Despite Which Samia Halaby Has Called Us Together. And I think a little bit in my ear are people like Wendell Berry and Vanna Shiva and Fred Moten and Stefano Arni and Ken Kwashki and so on. The painter Samia Halaby recently posted the following on Instagram in gratitude for South Africa bringing charges of genocide against Israel to the International Court of Justice. It says, South Africa's appeal to the International Court of Justice on behalf of the people of the earth is an appeal to Western governments to stop the destruction of human civilization. End quote. On behalf of the people of the earth, on behalf of the people of the earth, I've been turning that behalfness, those people of the earth, over in my imagination for the past several days. South Africa's appeal to end this genocide, and I think I can say that means all of our appeals and actions and dreams, including this, to stop this genocide, which necessarily means all genocide, all ethnic cleansing, and all war, is something that we do on behalf of the people of the earth. Partly this might be a regional or rather super regional designation, i.e. let's end genocide, let's end ethnic cleansing, let's end war, on behalf of people in Gaza and Palestine, and also on behalf of people all over the globe, all people everywhere. But I think it might also be a way of saying our appeals and actions and dreams are on behalf of people who are identified with the earth, of the earth, or from the earth, or as the earth. On behalf of the people as the earth. Our appeals, actions, and dreams are on behalf of people who have not yet abandoned or forsaken or been tricked out of or had stolen from them their understanding of themselves, ourselves as the earth. And on behalf of people who, if we've forgotten ourselves as earth, might be remembered to it. And given as earth is another word for life, we might remember ourselves as life, which, quite as it's kept, we might have to do. In no small part because we exist in or survive, some of us, and barely, or sadly sometimes participate as, what I've been thinking these days of as a regime of death, a mode of unlife, which such that we have an economy whose engine is in no small part dependent on devastation and brutality. I mean, how you get rich on account of people being sick, poor, in terrible pain, and utter precarity, which you may have noticed incentivizes our illness, pain, poverty, and utter precarity. It makes such things goods. Or how you can get rich on war. As Arundhati Roy asks rhetorically in her book Capitalism, a Ghost Story, she says, quote, do we need weapons to fight wars? Or do we need wars to create a market for weapons? End quote. And Anthony Blinken said recently in Davos, explaining to those wholesome and altruistic billionaires gathered there, that the U.S. needs to send more arms to Ukraine, by which he means sacrifice even more Ukrainians, at the altar of Raytheon and Lockheed and Boeing and the contractors and foreign investors who will come in to rebuild and I assume take over. Quote, here's the thing, he says, of that money that we're asking for, $50 billion gets spent right back in the United States. It's made in America. These are American jobs. You can read that on Aaron Mate's Substack. Or how it was put in the very chipper October 10th announcement from IU about its $111 million investment in a bunch of almost benign-sounding words that really mean weapons. That mean drones and bombs and probably the joysticks with which to drive and drop them. That means the technologies of war, which means murder at scale, which means sorrow and suffering and generational trauma at scale. Immense and incomprehensible, though they put it like this. The significant investments we're making in academic and research programs, new faculty appointments, state-of-the-art facilities, and future-focused collaboration with industry will strengthen IU's national leadership, further develop Indiana's microelectronics sector, and drive our state's current and future economic competitiveness. They also reflect a shared mission between IU and NSWC Crane to drive deeper strategic collaboration and build the innovative technologies and capabilities critical to our nation's security and prosperity. In addition to longing for George Carlin to come back from the dead to help us eviscerate this and all other professional bureau bullshit-ese which these days get stuffed down our throat ad nauseum. Oh wait, maybe IU could offer a certificate in such bullshit.
Online, though.
Oh. Yeah. And feeling so bad for the person who is paid not nearly enough to write this bullshit, and praying actually for their dear heart, their true and only soul. We ought to note those last few words, quote, security and prosperity, which I'm pretty sure really means security as prosperity, which really means war as prosperity. And these days, today, it means genocide as prosperity. If we had any doubt about the university's role as accomplice to or ambassador for the regime of death, or the mode of unlife I'm talking about, if it has proven difficult for us to acknowledge or come to, perhaps because we are so enmeshed, perhaps because we are missionaries, perhaps because it's our livelihood too, this might peel the scales all the way off. As it might have also to recall how forbidden it was for the presidents of some of those universities. Those universities, by the way, less sanctuaries for learning and thinking than preserves of the wealthy and wealth. Those universities, corporations through and through. And the president presidents of those universities, clearly the advocates of said corporations, said wealthy and wealth. Those universities among the most important lines of defense, or actually the avant-garde, in fact, of the status quo, rich getting richer, etc. To talk back in the most timid, feeble, lukewarm, tongue-tied way imaginable. Forbidden for those ambassadors simply to wobblingly refuse to quite condemn the protests for Gaza and Palestine, which are, lest we get confused, this is plain and simple, they're calls for life. And calls for life are likewise calls to the earth. Calls for us to remember ourselves as earth, people of the earth, recalling us to the earth. And to be recalled to the earth, to be recalled as life, what does that mean? Or even to be remembered to earth, to life, to be remembered as earth and life. I think it means above all that we are remembered to the unfathomable river or chain or song of all that has made us possible, of all by which we have come to pass at all, a song to which we can never know all the words, though amazingly we can sing along. To be life, to be earth, means to be utterly dependent, interdependent, rather. A blossoming thicket of bountiful mead means to be beholden utterly, means to be beholden to all that has held and beheld us, that holds and beholds us, I mean. The sycamore in the corner of the graveyard and the swifts streaming out of its big open eye into the luscious dusk, the toddler wobbling toward the pigeons, the recipes, the prayers, the gardens, the libraries, the orchards, the woods, which, enthralled by the brutal fantasy that we can neither resist nor outsmart. We cannot conjure in a laboratory, and we cannot outdo. Which, too, it seems to me anyway, is the university's dream sometimes. That we might be separate from and therefore ought to corral and dominate and extract the earth or life. But that might not be its only dream, as Elaine Scarry suggests in her book on beauty and being just, when she writes that, quote, universities are among the precious things that can be destroyed, end quote. She is not referring to universities as arms contractors or hedge funds or training grounds for ceaseless competition and feeding the general wreckage. She's talking about universities as places where we might come to study beauty. For instance, the paintings of Samia Halaby, which she argues, Scarry argues, because beauty compels us to make reproductions of itself, whether by taking a picture or drawing a sketch or painting an imitation or a version, or writing a poem or making a song or telling about the beauty to a friend or a stranger, it makes more beauty in the world. And because beauty compels us to reproduce it, because it is like a dandelion with its ceaseless beginning, because it is like a dandelion whose 1,000 seeds make 1,000 dandelions, make 1,000 seeds, etc., beauty with its ceaseless beginning, she says, alerts us to what she calls terrestrial plenitude, meaning a sense of enoughness or bounty. The opposite of the belief in and imposition of scarcity, a regime of death runs on. And such terrestrial plenitude or enoughness that beauty helps us to see and imagine and understand ourselves as a part of, inclines us to want beauty for everyone, and the deprivation of beauty from no one. When we are not ill or broken, which we sometimes are, we want the beautiful sunset or bird song or grove of cherry trees in bloom for everyone. And we want the destruction of those things for no one. You can see where this is going. Beauty and the study of it alerts us to and inclines us toward justice and care, and I would even say love. Which is also to say, beauty might remember us as the people of the earth. Samia Halaby's paintings, along with her words, might remember us as people of the earth, might recall us as earth, which might recall and remember us as well to our obligations as people of the earth, as life. which is to tend to that life, to nurture it, and defend it. Duty calls us forth. And to the extent that a university might foster such calls, even if it is the speculative university, or the subjunctive ones, the ones that exist beyond the walls of that one, or this one, or the ones that exist alongside that one, or the ones we are right now making in its crevices at this very moment, or the ones we are building around it. To the extent that the university might be that it is, as the writer Patrick Rosal might call it, an altar for listening to the beginning of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. That's what I think we call mic drop. Yeah. So, thanks. Yeah. So I'm going to come away from this saddened. I think some of Roland's remarks reminded me how saddened I am, but also angry, but also inspired. Thank you, Ross. And those of you who are sad or angry or inspired, all I can say before I start turning over the floor to those of you who want to speak, is the university wants us to get tired. They want us to forget about this. This is why they never announced it. This is why they won't come up with an explanation. This is why they won't acknowledge it. This is why they won't apologize directly to Samia Halaby. This is why they won't discuss it with you in college. They want this to go away. And that's counting on us to run out of steam. And so I urge you to keep up the pressure. Don't make this the end, make this the beginning. Do whatever you can. Call alums that you know, donors, friends, and we have to keep up the pressure because I think all of the speakers, thank you all so much, have really emphasized how much really and truly is at stake here and how embedded this is in a number of related struggles, whether they be the dismissal of professors, the dismantling of the Kinsey Institute, the threatening political interference of the current bill in the legislature. This particular cancellation, which as Steve and other people pointed out, casts a pall and a chill. How do we as faculty and students know who we are or are not allowed to invite? Right? And again, I would emphasize to the students, you are being cheated when this happens. So with that, I want to turn over the floor. We have about a half hour. Carl reminded me that at a free speech event like this, you want the audience to speak as well. So the ground rules will be, I think, probably, you raise your hand. I'll come hand you the mic, you get 1 minute. I know people love to make speeches at this sort of thing, but we want 30 people to speak. We have 30 minutes, so I really am going to cut you off. And to start out, don't even think of raising your hand if you're over 30. I want to hear from the students. Thank you, students, for coming. I mean, really, for me and for the rest of the people who organized this, we talk to ourselves among faculty. We know the faculty is all upset about this. I wasn't confident that we were reaching the students, but there have been a lot of you here, and I appreciate that. So with that, let me shut up and let people speak.